bem-vindos a esta primeira apresentação desta nossa iniciativa, a Semana Cultural do Vietnã, em que queria agradecer aqui a presença da Hoang Ly, artista plástica, que nos honrou com a sua presença e com a presença do seu trabalho no Museu de Sao Roque, a peça que está em exposição no claustro e que poderão ver de seguida. Esta pequena conversa, mais uma conversa, será referida em inglês, servirá no fundo para nos enquadrar em todo o processo de concepção da peça que tivemos o privilégio de receber aqui no museu. Muito obrigada. So, please start your talk, your presentation.
To see the time. 1 hour. First of all, I would like to introduce my real name is Hoang Ly. My last name is Hoang. And my first name is Ly, but my artist name is Hoang Ly. And first of all, I would like to say thank you to Mrs. Margarida de Montenegro, director of Santa Casa da Misericordia de Lisbon. Is the organizer of Vietnamese Cultural Week in Portugal for the first time ever, and very honored to be part of this important event. I would like to thank you to Mrs. Teresa Morna, the director of the Museo de Sao Roque, who hosts this meeting and also hosts the exhibition of my work downstairs. Thank you for everyone who work at Santa Casa and the museum to make this event happen. And finally, I would like to say thank you to all audiences who come here to listen to my talk. I am visual artist, and I was born in Hanoi, but I moved to Ho Chi Minh City when I was 3 years old with my family. I don't know if it's a luck, but I was born right at the year that my country united. And to be here, I would like to present my gratitude, my great gratitude to Mrs. Thủy Tiên de Oliveira, the president of the NAMPRO, for her great enthusiasm and contribution to the event as a programmer for this event. Today I would like to talk about the project boat 03958.bc. That's the project I worked since 2011. And the sculpture installation you saw downstairs in the yard of the museum. The name is Boat Home Boat. And this is like my artistic journey. I got a great influence from the Buddhism theory in most of my work, and this project is also got a deep influence from this theory of Buddhism. a little bit introduce about my character, and I quite a solitary person. Most of the time I want to be alone, and also at that time I can listen to myself deeply and see all the answer for my art journey, also as well as the answer for my art, my life journey. So even though the project started in 2011, but I think the root of this aspiration is from when I was a child. I love to read a lot of books, and the book like Sans Famille and Around the World 80 Days or Mowgli, and actually Mowgli, the world is the book that my father translated it from English into Vietnamese. And all those books give me ideas about the human traveling and human migration and immigration to find a new home for their life. So I would like to talk a little bit about the history of Vietnam. That in 1954 Geneva Accord, which partitioned Vietnam into two nations, the communist North and an American back South, drove around 1 million people to migrate down south. Among them were my grandmother and some family members, all of whom are on my father's side. My grandfather, along with his children, including my father, however, stayed put in Hanoi in order to welcome home and go home, only to reunite with their relatives after 1975. Between 1982 and 1985, my father, the poet Hoang Ly, who sits here with you in the audience, was sent to Red Education Camp because of his association with Malcolm, a member of the Nhân văn Giai phẩm, means humanity, works of beauty, affair, and because of the poetry he wrote himself. The Nhân văn Giai phẩm affair was the first artistic, cultural, political movement that publicly demanded for political reforms and greater intellectual freedom for the arts. Following its tradition, in 2014, Hoang Ly, my father, together with others, established the Ban Vận động Văn đàn Độc lập Việt Nam, meaning the League of Independent Vietnamese Writers, with the goal of creating a free and humanist literature scene. It's my father, the poet Hoang Ly, in Saigon in 1982, before he was imprisoned. And you can see he still look young right now, right? And yesterday we took a photo together in front of Santa Casa. So the project Boat on Boat belongs to 0395.dc project, and the combination of numbers and letters form half of the name of refugee boat. The barely visible black and white photograph of which I stumbled upon while researching. 0395A.dc showcased my ongoing inquiry into the epic story and continuous struggle of human immigration, whilst highlighting the contested nature of memorization, documentation and circulation of history, examined ideas of displacement and rootlessness, and thus in turn illustrating the fluctuating nature of history and identity. This multimedia college body of work, including text, sculpture, painting, video art, installation, architecture, and public art, take us on a journey of the real and the imagined, the remembered and the forgotten, the known and the unlearned. Drawing the fragments of Vietnam's past tales of exodus and my own experience as a modern-day migrant, my art creates a space to contemplate on the possible danger of losing connections to our own history, the power of repetition and recalling memory, and the relationship between the personal and the collective, thus transforming a story of one into a story of many ones. So with this project, not only the gallery or museum is a space for exhibition, but I consider the whole journey of the artwork, including the warehouse, the ship, or the truck, which transform my work. It will be the temporary space to exhibit my artwork. Because in this specific project, I question about what is the real gallery or museum for an artwork. And also the artwork talking about the human condition. So the we nowadays we always have to travel from place to places to many people have to travel to find the better home for them. And then the artwork itself travel, they talk about that concept. So you can see this, the warehouse and ship. And for this work, the idea is not about the exhibition for whole project, but I prefer to exhibit part of the project in different places. It's like the dislocation of the body of the work as the body of the spirit, and everything is dispersed and then gather again in some place and then dispersed again. So it's some different places. Part of my artwork exhibited in Chicago, in Colombia, in Chile. So we just go over to see so people move and migrate for many reasons and on many different levels, politically, socially, environmentally, or economically. For what about when you leave for education, educational purposes, or move away from relationship or marriage? These choices also make you a kind of migrant. Even when people don't physically migrate, at some point in their lives, they could have experienced a spiritual migration on an emotional or psychological level, feeling unbalanced, uneasy or unsatisfied with the circumstances they are in. This can happen to anyone at this minute or the next. So this is the photo with the video of both people with the head. He has no choice but to cut the rope connected to his boat to save the people in his boat. By that way, all the boats behind him have to be sank down to the bottom of the ocean. So to rescue some people, he have to sacrifice other people, and it's a very painful decision that give him a very bad experience all his life. I just go over to many different components of my project, so that we have the overview about the project. I used performance art, like I draw my country, because in my country the nước, the word nước has two meaning, water and nations. So I drink water, it means I drink my country. So for this piece, I drink water until I was exhausted or I threw out, and got really sick about that. So it's question about the love for the country, and also question about the situation of people who have to cross the ocean to find their better home. This is also another part of the project, ashes and the view. This is the work from the old bones, cow bones that I cooked for my daughter to make traditional food pho. So I collected all the bones from 3 years living in Chicago. So I have to cook beef noodle for my daughter because she missed her country. She missed Vietnam so much that she requested me to cook for her every day. And then I transformed the whole process of cooking beef noodle for my daughter as a original performance art that I collected all the bones after cooking, and I make an installation and a sculpture out of that. So it's and then there is a sculpture out of the cow bones. And again, is the idea of Buddhism philosophy in my piece is about we see the universe inside a very small object. So then with this sculpture, it's very small, it's tiny like this, but I use photography to explore the whole universe and whole transforming inside of one piece, and it talking about how identities and culture of people mix together and transform to become a new piece. And these paintings actually come from the sculpture. So I analyze the components of the sculpture, and then it's really a scientific process and also playful process when I observe the sculpture very carefully, and then I put it in paintings. So 21 sculpture become 21 piece of painting. This is my research about people who flee away my country. It's just photograph I collected from the internet. And then all the documents about people, like the first Thanksgiving in the US, or the Odysseus journey, and the ship of the Noah, or the Sisyphus, who always moved the rock on top of the mountain to find, and then the rock fall down again. From Greek mythology, is talking about the people always keep finding the better life, and then what is really the better life for our human. So to me, it's in the process. This is my research. So to do this painting, actually there are a lot of layers of human migration and migration. I um, I observe and I do research through books and through many documents to make this. For example, for this, the painting 12 is on the foot. It's a layer with the image of the feet of migrants who were part of the 1954 election by feet movement in Vietnam. The images were collected from the internet and printing on cotton fabric and sealed on the canvas by a great-granddaughter of a migrant from this movement. Actually, the process to make this work is also a durational performance art that I requested another migrants to do that. So this is the election of feet in 1954 in Vietnam. So all the feet of people that I collected and I put on my painting. We don't have a lot of time to talk about the piece, but then now both on both, because I have the honor to present the sculpture both on both. That is a part of the project 03958.bc. So then I want to focus more about both on both. So at sea, water, in the midst of a violent storm, a means of transportation, the boat could also become a place that provides safety. Within the parameters of their supposedly safe homes, the house, those ashore may have to endure feelings of anxiety and unsettlement, or find themselves entangled. Depending on where one located, they may find themselves safe by or trapped in a boat or home. So this picture presents this sculpture, but actually this artist book. So as I told you before, like the places where the work travel is very important, not because that is the important places, but it's because all places can emphasize the concept of the artwork. So both Humboldt traveled to USA, Vietnam, Colombia, Hong Kong, Tunisia, Australia, Chile, and then Portugal is the 10th venue of this project. So you mark the 10. This museum marked my 10 times to exhibit the part of this project. So this picture I just took yesterday in the yard of the museum. And I'm very happy that it seems that the yard is perfect for this work. Why we have pool with water in the middle of the yard, and then it means you can see the shape of the shape of the boat move to the water, and here the shape of the house. So this boat Humboldt begin with this artist book. So it can be considered a sculpture, but then you can open it. Like this, and you will see a small book, and this small book is actually 3 meters in length, and it can be longer and longer if we collected the story of all human migration and migration. And so this artist book just an idea for a huge public art, a huge book for human migration and migration. And then with this sculpture, I come to minimalism, yes. That the shape of the home, and when upside down, it becomes a boat. It's very simple, but then it's like yin yang. And we, as I told before, we always live with this perception or this situation, not only physically but also mentally. Like even we are in home, but many of us will have to experience the storm in our mind, like we are in the ocean. And then even when we are in the boat, in the middle of the ocean, very dangerous. But actually that is the only home we have to count on and hope that this home will save us in the ocean. So the way to read this book is also by chapter. So with each chapter, home and boat, one story will be told, and that person will travel to one destination, and with that destination, they have to solve the problem, they have to adapt to the new environment. And then the way I make this book also like a concrete poetry, that even the blanket between words on talking about emotion or the situation of people. So we not only read the book by words, but we read the book by the visual way. So then from this book, when we open, so that the story open for people to read. With one example for one chapter. So it's also talk about what I'm explaining before. The sculpture artist book be the same physical form, beginning with the shape of the house at one end and closing with the shape of the boat at the other. And the middle section opening into leaves that resemble ocean waves. So from this small artist book, I transform it into big sculpture, which is and show at the exhibition Open Door, Art Through the 30 Years of Renovation, 1986 to 2016, at Vietnam National Museum of Fine Arts, Hanoi, 2016. And then it's exhibited in Queensland Art Gallery. So the concept is repeat, reiterate, to open up, to expand, to ever involve, and revisit, return, to remember, to intensify, and blur, to cross out, to hide, to veil, so as to make the invisible visible. So talking about cross out, you can see for the big sculpture, which I engraved the story of one boat people in Chicago. Then all names and locations and years of that story were blocked. You can see. And this bar is also part of the visual form of the sculpture. Like this. So then these two meanings that everyone in the world can feel it, their own name, their own location, and their own year. And also it is a gesture to talk about censorship in Vietnam, where every story with detail have been hidden. So people just say everything in general. So we cannot mention because people who will be mentioned in detail will got dangerous. Because I'm an editor, I work as a book editor for almost 20 years in Vietnam. So then I got inspiration from the whole process, how in my country people have to edit book to be able to publish the magazine or book in Vietnam. So many things will be hidden or crossed out. So then I use those facts to make it become the visual form of my artwork. And then I mean to repeat the shape of home and boat again and again. So because to me, when the word is repeated again and again, that repetition can amplify the word's significance. But this also a gesture of erasing, as it can also make the word more ordinary and even turn it into almost nothing. Like when we repeat a thing again, it's nothing precious. It's so simple. It's nothing precious, nothing big to talk about. So then it means it's erasing. So it's two art of gesture at the same time when I try to repeat the boat and home. And I think erasing is the way for things to cease being painful. If we remember everything, we cannot live due to all the suffering from remembering. And so in some way, erasing is a form of meditation. I'm not saying we forget the memories, but we might get used to the pain. It's like if people continuously talk about an issue, it becomes normalized. The pain is no longer as painful, and it becomes possible to embrace the pain and transform it into a peaceful state of living. And this is where my work ties into the Buddhist philosophy and thinking that it is based on. The idea of constantly searching for heaven, that perfect place, but that being something that you have to find within yourself. With both on both, we can get philosophical or psychological about it, but in the end and down to its core, it's simply the consonance of the shape of the boat and the house, a visualization of yin and yang. According to Buddhist thinking, you have to find balance within yourself rather than go outwards and look elsewhere. I would love for my words to be a common place for people to gather, contemplate and recognize what condition they are in and how to deal with it. So that's why from the book I begin to make a sculpture, both on both two. So the sculpture both on both you saw in the yard downstairs is number 1, and this number 2. Then I transform that sculpture into public art. Because besides aesthetic and concept, which every art group has, I think public art engages and opens the possibility of transforming space. There is an important material dimension of public art that incites and provokes audience interactivities, particularly towards the environment in which the artwork is placed and the location where the audience has come to view the work. Public art serves not only to enhance a physical space, but also to create conversations and discussions, allowing the viewers to take ownership of the piece in any way they see fit. So it's the model for my public art. We don't have time to see. Let's see a little bit. Huh? Okay. So with this work, I have to work with the engineer and architecture to calculate the safety of the work. And it's 20 tons in weight, 7.2 meter in length and 6.9 meter in width, and 3.8 meter in height, built in 12 design steel configuration, with a boat-shaped structure at the top and a house-shaped structure at the bottom, or vice versa, depending on our viewing point, and a connecting platform in between. This radiating structure bears with it all the conceptual thinking and philosophies that lie at the foundation of the entire project. So this is my 3D rendering. So now you can see from the small book, when one story be told, then people make their own story when they come through this public art. So basically, I just open the cover of this sculpture and let people write their own story. So it's become the commonplace. People can sit there, can drink, can hang out, and especially is the stage. I calculate the strength and the foundation of these artworks so that it can carry 1 tons on top. So you can see like people can make it at a stage. So if you put it in a garden or in the park, so it's really multi-use for this work. This can be a sculpture, just a bench for people to sit, and also a stage for rock band, for dance. So this is the whole process. I work with the engineer continuously 8 months to make this happen. You can see, and I'm very happy that the workers, the engineer, they become the very first audience who enjoy this work. And they also very surprised because this work is combined by 12 parts. So it's very special that we don't need to have any foundation to build this work. The way I make it, that is always can take apart and then example anywhere it goes. It's like ourselves, it's like human. We always have to disperse ourselves when we have to go everywhere, and we have to recollect our own spirit, our own memory, our own belongings to make it home again. So this one, you can see is including 1 part, 2 part, 3 part. Yeah, and it's connected by yin and yang as well. We don't need to drill anything on the floor, no need. So it means the way I construct the work is very conceptual as well. It's not only a compilation for the strength of the work, but how it connected together become the concept. Because this work can be exhibited in two ways. The first way is we collected 12 parts together and make it a home, is make it a community space. And the second way to exhibit it is we can put 12 parts in the park, for example, like separately. Then it's like your body dispersed. So I'm very moved that I have chance to see the relics of Andrew Phú Yên and learn about how his hair and teeth is treasured here in this museum when he's sculpted in Vatican and his body in my country. So this is how people migrate and how parts of the body disperse. And the number 093503958.bc. Okay. Even me, the author of this work, it's difficult for me to remember the title of the project. And then it reflects the concept of the project. It's about how the human memory is lost during traveling. So this number from the number of the boat, of the refugee boat, I found in internet, but the beginning series of the number is faded, so I couldn't read it. The full series of number, so it's just the ending of the numbers. And then when people remember the title of the project, they can miss some number. They may say 093A dot something. So it's all the memory of the audience about the project, talking about the concept of the project as well. So there's a cellist in Vietnam, she plays music. And you can see the little girl feel very naturally sit on and play with the work. And it's the dancer. They use my work as a stage for them to choreograph a new piece of dance. And the work itself, like a drum, like a gong, that we can also, the audience can also make music out of that. So, this is my last sentence. Like, dream enough to have courage, believe enough to enter the land of the wonder, and achieve the unimaginable. Stay idealistic enough to transcend structural borders. So I think that is necessary for me as an artist in my art journey. Thank you. Any question? Yeah.
I wonder about the material you use in the shuttle.
What?
Material. Because from the beginning, your material you use is wood. Your shuttle, the small one is wood.
This one?
It's wood.
It's good.
Yeah, it's wood. But the big one you use is wood.
Yes. Oh, so firstly, because the story of both people, they travel with a wooden boat, ship. So that's why the first idea is about the wooden material, and it's for the book. But then when I begin to develop the idea until the public art. And the public art is totally different in the way of making it. Firstly, the steel will be shiny, so it's reflect. If you put in the park, so it's reflect the environment around you. So this means the story repeated and reflected the story of people moving around it. So it's very important. And secondly, the steel material will be enough in term of technical. So it's only the steel can be served as a stage, because my idea is it's not about we told a story, but it's about the solving problem. So that's why I want to make the space as a mediation place for people to sit there, to think about their own story, or to tell their story to other people. So, and then to not only thinking about the past, about the painful memory, but to build a new life. And then it's become a stage for dance, for music. So only steel structure can serve that. So when we transform from one very small model into a public art 21 tons, so the 21 tons is not like I want it 21 tons, but after calculating everything, then it's become 21 tons to meet the requirement. Okay. So if there's no more question, okay.
Good evening. Okay. That my name, I come from France. Your conference is a focused system for the immigration by the go transportation. Do you have any project to present your work in France or not? France.
In France?
Yes.
I haven't had chance yet, but I hope in the future, because I really do hope this work will travel all over the world, and even the story engraved or printed in this it will be in different languages. So right now it's in Spain, Vietnamese and English, and the project will be in French, in other languages as well. Yes. Portuguese. Yes. Yes.
Because of the first step in Europe for you.
Yes.
I have the second question concerning one of your slide showed some picture designed by Taco.
Yeah.
Taco. What is your relation with Taco? Because Taco is a very big engineer for automotive.
Yeah, it's a good question. Thank you. Taco is his question talked about Taco. That is, I think, the strongest, the most famous company about making auto. Yeah, and the relationship between me and Taco is just a customer and the company. So I'm a customer, I'm their customer, because public art is really new in Vietnam. I mean, the sculpture putting in the park is normal, but for the idea of contemporary public art, which is not only a sculpture for people to see, but it become but the interaction of people will very meaningful. It make the work have its own purpose. It's very first one in Vietnam, I think. And also the idea to make this public art to reach the safety for people to use it is very important. So I have to knock the door to many engineer company, but no company meet my requirement. they only can produce something look beautiful. But if you just for a few days, it can broken or it can be very dangerous for audience when they interact with. So then, luckily, because in my observation, that one person introduced me to taco, and then I think I'm very lucky and really lucky that that year tacos only produce car. But for that year, for the first time ever, they begin to open the market out, out of car. So they looking for any customer who come to them and order things. And I think I'm the very first customer who look for them. Yeah, and they were very excited to work with me for the very first contemporary public art in Vietnam. Yeah. So if there's no more question, I would like to give the... Okay.
Yes, sorry to take some time for you. With Twitter, we spoke about the realization of the memory part for Francisco Pina. Yeah? And now we have some difficulty to realize this project. The stories, yes. We spoke about design, the nail store, to memorize the work of Francisco de Mina. So we have some difficulty now because of the prices. The cost is so high. Do you have any idea to reduce the cost and to realize for the last time? You have to optimize the cost to realize the story in order to memorize Francisco de Mina.
Làm cái pin như kỷ niệm Francisco de Mina.
Sorry, I need the... Can you speak louder, please?
Chúng tôi có một cái dự định là xây dựng cái đài kỷ niệm cho quốc cha Francisco de Mina. Thì chị Liên đã có tham dự một số chương trình. Thì trong cái vấn đề hiện nay nó gặp khó khăn đó. Thứ nhất là vấn đề design, thứ nhì là cái trọng lượng của nó, và thứ ba là cái vấn đề giá cả để chuyển từ Việt Nam sang đây. Thì trong cái vấn đề này đó thì nếu mà mình muốn thực hiện cái bia đá kỷ niệm của Sao Roque tại Guarda, tức là thành Guarda, thì chắc là mình phải xem lại cái chương trình đó và có những phương pháp nào để mình có thể giảm giá và giảm trọng lượng của cái bia đá này.
Yes, the questions about the stone for Francisco de Pina, what I collaborate with the team, Mrs. Street team to make it happen. So it's just a very first estimated because I didn't it can be considered as a small public art. But the importance of the public art is we need to know the space. So the space is very important. So it's not that we just want it big and it will be big or small, but it can talk and respond to the environment around. So I believe that the trip to water next time will give me and others more. More like inspiration and more fact about how sometimes we don't need really big, but sometimes this big is important. Yeah, so I have no answer right now. But the questions about doing any public art had to be combined, a combination between the idea of the artist and the cost. Yeah, so not that it's expensive is good. Sometimes cheap is good. Yeah. Okay. So thank you very much for your listening to my talk. I hope you understand my English. And I would like to set the stage for my dear father. Yeah.
May I suggest to see your work after your father
Yeah. 7 minutes. Yeah.
talking?
Yes.
Of